Here's an example in which they give us a graph of a sinusoidal function and they want us to come up with the formula. So how do we do this? Well, I've given you some notes on this. Let's go back and look at the notes. So the first thing you have to do, here are the notes. Let me kind of get rid of some of the scribbles here. Notice that the first step, as it's saying here in the notes, first find a box that contains it. Now to put a box, you've got to remember very clearly, this is the part that most people are not 100% clear on. You got to remember what sine and cosine look like in their box, what one cycle of sine and cosine look like. Specifically, sine starts in the middle, goes up, goes down, back to the middle. So he starts and ends middle, right? Same thing for the negative sign. The only difference between negative sign and positive sign, notice, is that it goes up first for positive sign, down first for negative sign. But both of them start in the middle, end in the middle of their boxes, as opposed to cosine, which starts high and finishes high, or negative cosine starts low, finishes low. So you got to be clear on that. The cosine is a U shape up or a U shape down. Positive for up, negative for down. Whereas sine starts in the middle, ends in the middle. Starts middle, high, low, middle. Starts in the middle, low, high, middle. Right? So sine starts middle, ends middle. Cosine is a U shape up or U shape down. Okay, with that in mind, let's go put a box around. So we need a box like this around exactly one cycle of sine or cosine. So going back to it, let's do that. So one cycle. Well, it's not. I'm just going to start at 0. Always start at 0 if you can. What do I mean if you can? Well, if it hits a high point or a midpoint, right? Then that can be an edge of the box because sine and cosine either hit the top or the bottom for a U shape upside down or the middle. So if it's hitting something weird, then you can't do that. We'll get to those harder examples. This one we can just take this box, and how far do I go? I capture that much. How did I know how far to go? Well, because see what's in that box right now? See what this is? That's a U shape. That's a cosine, isn't it? So that's clearly y equals a cosine bx plus c plus d. That's the general form. Now, how do you know it's not sine? Well, because it's a U shape. See how it starts high, finishes high? That's a U shape. In fact, it's a positive cosine, isn't it? Right? It's not a sine. It's not a sine. Whereas, let me show you a sine to show you the difference. Here is a sine graph. See how this one right here, see the box that he's in? He's in the middle of his box. Middle goes back to middle. This is middle to middle. That's a sine. This one was a sine graph. It's one cycle of sine because he's going from the middle of his box to the middle of his box. Whereas this one is going from the top of his box to the top. That's a U shape, that's a cosine. All right, so that's step 1 and 2 is to get the box and identify if it's sine or cosine with the general formula. All right, then where do we go from there? So that's step 1, step 2, get the general formula, whether it's sine or cosine. Now you start looking at the box, and I've given you a bunch of information. The middle of the box is your D, and the amplitude is how far it goes above and below the box. Okay. So, the middle of the box, what's the middle of our box? The middle is just 0. This is a height of 0 here, right? And how far above, and that's D, so that's D. I'm going to make it a capital D. Doesn't really matter, but D equals 0 because D is the middle. Okay, and how far above and below? The amplitude is 2. Amplitude is 2. It goes 2 above and below the middle. So we've got the A, we've got the D. We're halfway there. We just need the B and the C now. And we've got the whole formula. How do we get the B and the C? Well, coming on down. For the B, the width of the box, see the width down here? The width of the box is the period, 2 pi over B. So let's go do that. So the width of the box. So what is the width of our box? The width of our box from edge to edge is 6, isn't it? The width of our box is 6. That's the period. The period is the width of the box is 6. So that means 2 pi over B. That's the period form. There must be 6. Let's bring it over here. 2 pi over b must be 6. Solve for b. How you do it? Put this over 1. Cross multiply. 2 pi times 1 is 6 times b. 2 pi is 6b. Divide by 6. Boom. And then what do we got? 2 goes into 6 3 times. Pi over 3b is pi over 3. So we got b. We got B, we got A, we got D. All we need now is C. Let's go back to the notes. C comes from the horizontal shift right here. The horizontal shift, either right or left edge of the box. You can use the right edge or the left edge. It doesn't matter. This box just repeats forever. It's one cycle. It just repeats forever. It's going to be easier to use since the right edge is right on 0. The left edge is over at -6. We could do that. That formula would work. But it's going to be easier. If one of the edges is right on 0, just use that. That's easier. So you can use the right edge or the left edge for the horizontal shift. You're saying, where does the box begin? And again, begin could be right or left because, there's going to be another box there and another box there, just another box there. It just repeats forever. So you can use either edge. You're saying, what's the shift? Where has the beginning been shifted? Well, not at all. The box starts right on 0. The next box, right, will begin right on 0. So the horizontal shift, and the formula is -c over b, is 0. So let's go back to it. So we are here. Let's do it right here. So look at the right edge of our box is right on 0. This is 0 here, isn't it? This is +1, etc. So it's 0. So our horizontal shift is 0. So again, you can use the right edge because that's where the next box begins, right? The right edge or the left edge is the beginning of the next box. So the next box begins at 0. So our horizontal shift is 0. Our graph has not been shifted sideways at all. It's lined up right at 0. It begins every cycle. See another U-shaped graph is beginning right here, right at 0. So our cycle begins right at 0. It's not been shifted sideways at all. Horizontal shift, -c over b is 0. Solve that equation for for C. I don't even need to plug in b. I could. We know b is pi over 3, but who cares? B is just going to go away. 0 times b is just 0. And so C is just 0. So our C is 0. So we got the formula now. We got everything. So A, what was A? 2. 2. Oh, and it's positive. Why is it positive? Because the U shape up. If it was a U shape like this down, then that would be -2. All right, 2, +2, or just regular 2, cosine, bx, what was b? Pi over 3. Pi over 3x plus c is 0, and d was also 0. So you don't have to put those zeros in there, but there we go.